Good evening. Welcome to the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education regular meeting for September 20th, 2022. I call the meeting to order at 6:00 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Baldwin. Here. Clark.
Here.
Hickman. Here. Lee.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Introduction of guests, please.
Tonight we have Teresa Bowers, Darcy Doonesbury, Jackie Hoover-Renner, and Mike Emmer.
And we're going to go into the Board of Education Quarterly Recognition Awards, please.
Each quarter, different employees are nominated by the administrators and then voted upon the administrative team. And for this past quarter, the ZEA representative who's getting the quarterly award is Jackie Hoover-Renner. And our OC is Darcy Dusenberry. And our non-union is Cedric Harris.
Congratulations to all three of you. We appreciate all your efforts and hard work that you do for our district. Everybody's here from ZBA. Zanesville Community High School report. That you, Carrie?
We have 146 on enrollment. 54 of those are exceptional ed. Currently have 10 students on a waiting list. Last year about this time we had a little over 100, so about 32% increase in our enrollment overall, and then we had 50% increase in exceptional ed students. We are continuing to offer blended learning. We have approximately 40% of our students that participate in that. So that allows us to have a lot more room in the classrooms because we don't have that. So good news, on September 15th, the 21-22 Ohio School report cards were released. Because we were dropout prevention and credit recovery school, we received a specialized report card. So there were 78 schools in Ohio that are dropout prevention and credit recovery, and 38 of those schools received an overall rating that exceeds standards. However, only 5 of those schools received and exceed standards in all areas, and we were one of the top schools that received exceed standards. So this is a huge deal for us. We're very appreciative of the students and staff for all their hard work on that. And also we would like to thank Dr. Baker, Mr. Young, and all the ZCS administrators for their continued support and belief and value in that school.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. We appreciate that, all the hard work that's going on at the community school. Okay, let's approve the minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes of the Zanesville Board of Education at the regular meeting on August the 16th, 2022. May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second?
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes. Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
And report of the Treasurer of the Board of Education, Mr. Mike Young.
Hi, guys. Any questions on any of the audit reports? You'll notice there were a couple really high negative balances in some of the ESSER funds. That is a lot of the technology that was put in each classroom. So we paid it, we did get paid that at the end of last week. So that negative is kind of cleared out. So that brings our cash back up to closer to what it really is on the reports. So the odd thing here in September is always the permanent appropriations for the year. So all these funds are basically appropriated at their total amount off the certificate from the auditor's office, except for the general fund. We typically don't appropriate the entire amount there. We hold back on that within the confines of the revenues for the year. So but can lead through there if there's any specific questions. The total appropriations for the year, the 93.3 million, almost 93.4. Last year was closer to 100, and mainly the drop is in the ESSER funds that have been spent, which are still in for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 for this year. So that's what the remaining sort of difference is about what we have spent total in ESSER in the last year and a half. Other than that, there's nothing odd. We'll watch the general fund as we go through the year. If we need to reappropriate, we will, but hopefully we'll stay within that number. It is a little bit higher than last year's permanent appropriation. And the last item I have, we always try to put the property insurance on here. That is about a $35,000 increase over the year before. And we all know the effects of the hailstorm back in May. With regards to that, we're still waiting on the claims to be finalized. There's a little bit of difference between the adjuster and the contractor. At this point, I think they're still about $500,000 apart. So, but you kind of look at it, we're going to have a higher premium, but we're kind of financing the roofs with that increase. So, you guys have any questions or anything?
Property liability and fleet insurance. Approve the property liability and fleet insurance with Ohio Casualty Insurance Company through the Young Insurance Agency effective July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 at the annual rate of $199,885. May I have a motion, please? And a second?
Baldwin, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Now we're going to superintendent recommendations with Dr. Doug Baker.
For our guests that are here, you're welcome to stay, but the meeting doesn't get any more exciting than what it's already been. So we won't take it as any personal way if you want to exit. Item one, resignation classified for the resignation of Tamara Terrell, food service at National Road Elementary, effective August 19th of 22. Reason for the resignation is personal. And for the resignation of Marcy Rice, food service at Zane Gray Elementary, effective August 18th of 22. And the reason for the resignation is personal.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin. Yes. Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
And before we go on, I do have a couple of adjustments on item number 8 on page 9. Kathy Stillwell, experience level is 5, not 6, and it doesn't change the amount for the mentor teacher. And Peyton Norris is experience level 4, not 3. And there is a change in his amount, and that's a ski club advisor. Item 2, employment certificated. Approve the following certificated personnel as listed for the 22-23 school year, pending appropriate certification requirements and background check. And that's Carol Pittenger, intervention specialist at John McIntyre Elementary, step 1, as of August 19th of 22, and the amount of BA plus 139.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second?
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Item 3, employment classified. Approve the employment of Langston Jones, educational aide at Zangray Intermediate, effective August 24th to 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD aide, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule. Approve the employment of Stacy Holsky, special education aide 101 at National Road Elementary, effective August 29th to 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD aide, step 1 from the appropriate salary schedule. Approve the employment of Keely Anderson, special education aide 101 at National Road Elementary, effective August 30th to 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD LPN aide, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule. Approve the employment of Amy Goins, special education aide 101 at Zangray Intermediate, effective September 8th of 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD aide with AA, step 2 from the appropriate salary schedule. Approve the employment of Elizabeth Castle, preschool educational aide at Zangray Elementary, effective September 6th of 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be regular aide, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule. Approve the employment of Jamie Boguson, educational aide, kindergarten at Zangray Elementary, effective September 12th of 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be regular aide, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule. And approve the employment of Susan Border, bus driver, as a rehire, effective September 8th, 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be transportation salary schedule, step 0.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 4, employment substitutes. Approve the following substitutes as listed, as and when needed, to include substitute teachers, aides, and bus aides, and secretaries, cafeteria workers, custodians, bus drivers, and van driver, pending appropriate certification and background checks for the 22-23 school year. And also approve the following home instructor as listed, as and when needed, pending appropriate certification and background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second?
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yep.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 5, employment summer school. Approve the following as listed as bus aides for the summer school program for the summer of 22, as and when needed, at the rate of pay of $20 per hour. ESSER funding would be utilized.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 6, employee transfer. Approve the transfer of Megan Zorn, preschool teacher at Zangray Elementary, from BA step 0 to reflect BA plus 139 step 4, effective August 19th of 22, pending proper certification and background check. Transfer due to additional documented hours for the bachelor's degree and a correction of the starting step.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman, move.
And a second?
Baldwin.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 7, salary adjustments certificated. Approve the following personnel as listed to be granted salary adjustments effective for the 22-23 school year. Reason for the adjustment is due to having completed requirements for a new classification on the salary schedule by virtue of additional study.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second? Clark will second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Item 8, supplemental contracts. Approve the resignation of James Eddie McMillan as 8th grade boys basketball coach for the 22-23 year effective June 25th to 22, and approve the following supplemental contract as listed for the 21-22 second semester only as listed, and with the two corrections that we've already made, approve the following supplemental contracts as listed for the 22-23 school year pending required certification and background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second?
Hickman will move.
Hickman, yes.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion?
Just on that 21-22, that's a cleanup from the MOU that we passed last month. With
The summer school.
the, no, the 21-22.
Oh, yes.
But
Yes.
that cleans up the tennis and the equipment there for last year.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 9, FMLA leave of absence. Approve an FMLA leave of absence for Mandy Sampson, food service at Zane Gray Elementary, effective August 22nd to 22 to October 4th to 22. Approve an FMLA leave of absence for Kirsten Hummel, teacher at John McIntyre Elementary, effective September 26th to 22 to December 5th to 22. Approve an FMLA leave of absence for Alex Smith, intervention specialist at National Road Elementary, effective October 12th of 22 to January 4th of 23. Approve an FMLA leave of absence for Kelly Morrison, teacher at Zane Gray Elementary, effective September 1st of 22 to October 17th of 22. And approve an FMLA leave of absence for Heather McFerrin, teacher at Zanesville High School, effective September 1st of 22 to August 31st of 23.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second?
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 10, 21st Century Jumpstart Program Aid. Approve the following person as listed as a Jumpstart aid as and when needed for the summer of 22 at a rate of pay of $20 per hour. General funding would be utilized.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second?
Leo second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 11, extended time classified. Approve extended time for Sherry Wheeler, transportation, not to exceed 40 hours a week, up to 3 weeks prior to the 22-23 school year. As and when needed, rate of pay will be her per diem rate.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second?
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 12, preschool extended care. Approve the following staff as listed for the preschool extended care coverage for the 22-23 school year, as and when needed to maintain required ratios. Rate of pay will be $20 per hour.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second?
Baldwin.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Item 13, professional development. Approve the following staff as listed in the amount of $100 per day for required professional development, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt training during the summer of 22. Title II-A funding would be utilized. Also approve any new math literacy staff as listed in the amount of $100 per day of required professional development during the summer of 22. Title I funding would be utilized. And approve the following staff members as listed, trained by Matt Winland in restraint methods. Training would be for 3 evenings for 4 hours per day. We will have 2 different groups. Matthew and each person will be given $25 per hour stipend for attending the training. Matt will also be paid $15 per person for doing the training plus all the paperwork involved.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second.
Baldwin.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 14, 21st Century Program, Teachers and Aides. Approved National Road Elementary and Zane Gray Elementary, 21st Century Teachers. Approved the following personnel as listed as 21st Century after-school teachers at the rate of pay of $30 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers will be funded by 21st Century funds. And National Road Elementary, Zane Gray Elementary, 21st Century Aides. Approve the following personnel as listed as 21st Century after-school aides at the rate of pay of $15 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Aides will be funded by 21st Century funds.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second.
Long, a second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Item 15, after-school program, teachers and aides. John McIntyre Elementary and Zanesville Middle School and Zanesville High School teachers. Approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program teachers at the rate of pay of $30 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds. And John McIntyre Elementary, Zanesville Middle School, and Zanesville High School aides. Approve the following personnel as listed as after-school program aides at a rate of $15 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funds.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman will move.
And a second.
Leo, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Item 16, stipends, 21st Century Program and after-school program. 21st Century After-School Program approved the following individuals to receive a $6,000 stipend for administration of the program at their respective buildings for the 22-23 school year. Administrators will be funded by 21st Century funding. And the after-school program approved the following individual to receive a $6,000 stipend for administration of the program at John McIntyre Elementary for the 22-23 school year. Administrator will be funded by Muskingum Behavioral Health Grant Funding.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Item 17, volunteers. Approve the following volunteers as listed for the Zanesville City Schools for the 22-23 school year, pending appropriate background checks.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second.
Leo, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
We'll jump over to the addendum, kind of stay in personnel. So addendum item number 1, resignation classified. Approve the resignation of Stardust Reed, food service at Zanesville High School, effective September 15th of 22. Reason for the resignation is retirement. And approve the resignation of Kimberly Clifton, transportation, effective September 2nd of 22. Reasons for the resignation is personal.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin will move.
And a second.
Hickman will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Addendum item number 2, employment classified. Approve the employment of Roseanne Kinder, educational aide 101 at Zanesville High School, effective September 15th of 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD8, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule. And approve the employment of Aaron Morrison, Educational Aide 101 at John McIntyre Elementary, effective September 19th of 22, pending certification and background check. Salary will be MD8, step 0 from the appropriate salary schedule.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Addendum item number 3, employment professional security guard. Approve the employment of Kenneth Gray, professional security guard at John McIntyre Elementary, effective Tuesday through Friday, beginning September 1st of 22 through December 22 of 22. Pending background check, rate of pay will be $31.51 per hour, which is a prorated amount from the PSG step 10 through 14 on the administrative salary scale.
May I have a motion, please?
Lee will move.
And a second.
Baldwin will second.
Any discussion?
What are we doing on Mondays?
So Monday, so Scott Blanton, I believe, is going to be the permanent officer once the city gets through all their replacement phase here. So Scott's off on Sunday and Mondays, so he's doing Monday. And Kenny comes in and does the rest of the week. Kenny was the resource officer before he retired. And then, so Tommy Landerman and Scott Blanton have been alternating Mondays between McIntyre and the high school. And I think Scott Blanton's going to the high school in January, and Tom's going to go down to McIntyre. I think that's the way they have it, scheduled out. So we have Scott there on, he's either at McIntyre Monday or the high school, and wherever he's at, Tom's at the office.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Addendum item number 4, employment substitutes. Approve the following substitutes as listed as and when needed, pending appropriate certification and background check for the 22-23 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second.
Hickman second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Addendum item number 5, supplemental contracts. Approve the following supplemental contract adjustment for Eric Clark, varsity assistant football coach of 22-23, to reflect a change to his experience level from previously approved level 0 to level 2, class 6 to remain the same, pending certification and background check. And approve the following supplemental contracts as listed for the 22-23 school year, pending required certification and background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second.
Baldwin second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Addendum item number 6, 21st century program teachers. National Road Elementary, Zane Gray Elementary, 21st century teachers. Approve the following personnel as listed for the 21st century after-school teachers at the rate of $30 per hour for a portion of the 22-23 school year. Teachers would be funded by 21st century funds.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman move.
And a second.
Lee will second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Addendum item number 7, volunteers. Approve the following volunteers as listed for Zanesville City Schools for the 22-23 school year, pending appropriate background check.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin.
And a second.
Hickman second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
Addendum item number 8, stipend classified. Approve a stipend in the amount of $7,000 for Lisa Cronin for duties related to school sponsorship of the Zanesville Community High School for the 22-23 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin move.
And a second. Clerk will second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Addendum item number 9, board delegate OSBA Capital Conference. Approve Lori Lee to be the board's delegate at the 2022 OSBA Capital Conference to be held November 13th through 15th of 22 in Columbus, and approve Valencia Clark to be the board's alternative delegate at the 2022 OSBA Capital Conference to be held November 13th through 15th, 22 in Columbus.
May I have a motion, please?
Long will move.
And a second?
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lee.
I assume I should abstain.
I don't think you have to.
Oh, I don't have to. Okay, yes.
I think you can always vote for yourself. You can't vote for others. Or
Oh.
Something like this.
Oh, okay. All right, good to know.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Because sometimes it could be 3 of you in.
Yeah. Right.
Something like
Oh,
that.
that's
Have a
true.
board
You gotta have-
to do it.
Gotcha.
But
Oh, I knew there wasn't.
Addendum item number 10, contracts HVAC controls. Approve a contract with Air Force One to install a new Tritium Niagara supervisor for district-wide HVAC controls. Total cost of the software and licenses is $23,070. And approve a contract with Air Force One to install Jace HVAC control upgrades at National Road Elementary. Cost of the upgrade is $25,795.
May I have a motion, please?
Hickman, move.
And a second?
Well,
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yeah.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
yeah.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Okay, we're back to the regular agenda, and we're on item number 18. MVESC resolution, driver's education. Approve Richard Hall and Homer Weekly as driver instructor trainers through Muskingum Valley Educational Service Center for the purpose of providing driving training to students and driving instructors in a training status, and authorizing them to drive the district-owned driver education vehicle. There is no direct personal cost to our district for the service. Funding for the driver education program at Zanesville High School is funded through a grant of the JW and MH Stryker Charitable Foundation.
May I have a motion, please?
Leo move.
And a second?
Long second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Item 19, school resource officer agreement. Approve the attached agreement between Zanesville City Schools and the city of Zanesville for 2 police officers to work as school resource officers for 22-23, effective August 19th of 22 through December 22nd of 22 at the rate of $70,761.60.
May I have a motion, please?
Baldwin,
And a second?
Hickman, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Item 20 are policy items for consideration as listed. There's no vote needed. These are just to review. They would be for vote at the next meeting.
Any reporting discussion items that we need to discuss right here? Board committee updates, legislation, Lori, anything?
Other than at this, just the Title IX issues that are going on at the state school board, I don't, if you're familiar with it, there's a resolution to been placed by board member Shea to not recognize the new Title IX requirements around transgender youth. It really, in the resolution is a suggestion, which then could then go down to the state legislature, whether or not they would want to recognize that. There were 3 hours of testimony today, public testimony. So 55 people approximately testified around whether or not they encouraging the board to not vote to vote no or vote yes on that. So just something to watch, I would say. And then I think that was the big one that was out there. It's in the news, so if you haven't watched the news lately in the newspaper, so.
Anything on student?
I think since the last time, or between this time and last time, I attended the DLT meeting, and kind of restructuring it a little bit. Mike is doing a nice job with getting the district folks to kind of have more of the discussion, have some data discussion at the BLT, and then bringing that discussion to the DLT. So that was just the kind of the first meeting to kind of set the bar. So we had did a nice job there. And then of course I would just say that another thing under student achievement would be the state report cards. So and I know Dr. Baker sent us a report on that, but thinking about how important our focus needs to be on student achievement, and what we can do to help improve our state report cards. So, and I know we have a very unique population, and I recognize that. So thinking about how maybe we possibly could do things that we know we have to service that population, maybe differently than other local schools. So, and I'm trying to knock on the doors of Steubenville too. So I'm going to see if I can use some of my state connections to see if I can get in the door with Steubenville. So we'll see.
Then I'll be sending out some additional information, not this Friday, but the Friday after, looking at our scores from 21 to 22, and then looking at comparison districts to districts, similar districts in the state, and then also with that look at 21 to 22, also looking at our scores in 22 compared to pre-COVID.
And the other thing, the one other thing about the report card and the community school report card, I know they're different. I know they're measuring some different things. But I'm wondering if Zanesville City Schools could learn some things from the community school. They're serving a similar population. We still have the same percentage of disability kids. We said, you know, the poverty, socioeconomic. So we're servicing similar populations. So you wonder if, you know, there are some things that we can take and learn from a school that's exceeding in all areas. So just something to think about.
Buildings and Grounds Committee, we met on Tuesday, and still looking with Mott's to replace the field coming January, February.
You're supposed to be working on what it would cost to move the turf.
Correct. And the cost of the soccer field.
Existing.
Yeah. So,
To not just throw it out.
I know, yeah.
I mean,
That was-
a lot of the hail damage trying
Yeah,
to get through that.
The roofings, the roofs, the buildings. And of course, you heard that they've been patching, they were still patching at the middle school because they were having some leaks still going on there. So they're still working with
Middle
that.
school and McIntyre and this building. I think more than any of them were getting coated to try to stop it.
Say basketball season approaching. Those leagues happen very often, so we may want to look into possible means paying here in order to get into intermediate. Because we come very close to having use of the volleyball games. So that might be something to consider. So we're not waiting last minute because just to have as a backup.
Right, and I know the adjuster's well aware of the middle school because, again, in his mind, what do I got to do to not have to replace a gym floor? So that's, it's on his list, and Matt full go here that where we've been talking and working with the contractor. So hopefully they'll get that addressed pretty quickly here as we wind out of volleyball and get into the basketball.
Business advisory, that hasn't taken place yet.
Well, the next meeting,
Yeah.
next meeting is October
Yeah.
25th.
Right. Any closing comments? I think we are going in, we've got a couple of things to take care of into executive. Whereas Board of Education and the governmental bodies are required by statute to take official action and to conduct all deliberations upon official business only in open meetings unless the subject matter is specifically exempted by law. Whereas the minutes need only reflect the general subject matter of discussions in executive session, and whereas the members of the public body may hold an executive session only at a regular or special meeting for the sole purpose of consideration of any of the matters set forth below. Now therefore be it resolved under the provisions of ORC 121.22, the board hereby enters into executive session for the reasons herein stated. Personnel. Want to talk about, yeah. Discuss at that time. I have a motion to enter into executive session at 6:43. Please. And a second,
Leo second.
any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Bolt.
Yes.
right, we ready?
Coming back out of executive session at 7:34 PM. May I have a motion, please? In a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Hickman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yes.
And at this time, meeting adjourned, be it resolved that the Zanesville City Schools Board of Education meeting is adjourned at 7:34 PM. May I have a motion?
Leo move.
And a second?
Long, a second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hickman.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lee,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes.
Mrs. Clark.
Yes.